Again in studio. This time about breathing, also deep breathing. Deep breathing is actually very important, whatever company or design you have. Of course, also the design of theory of company is very important. The theory of perfect company design actually builds some sort of simple design of directory together with the code. Not easy to understand other company, but also not easy to understand the simple theory of perfect code. The theory of perfect code actually means that not everything is digital. In our company, we also think there are a lot of threats from other company. So of course the protection is also important. To build a very good community, it's very important in any company. Sometimes also different forms of code documentations are important, but do not live in chaotic terms of the naming. The namings in code are not important. It is very important to build life without name. And the more you are actually claiming some name, the more poor you become, or you become more rich, depends on the name. Sometimes it's also very important to understand the algorithms, but also how those could actually build a very, very difficult, sometimes even injuries. So, when you think about algorithms, you should actually think about how not to build any algorithms. To build safety, it's not easy, especially not with the code. There are millions of different editors, and with all those millions of different editors, you should actually build your own studio. If you do not build your own studio, you can ask yourself how much of the code your company is going to pay to some other developer or accountant or even to the server while you are going to look for the better and better numbers. The numbers are actually not important. In life, it's more important to protect products, but sometimes also important to protect your neck, your body, your arms, and your legs, but also your design of the most simple, elegant head. To understand that helmets are also important is sometimes very, very important. To understand that other people and accounts can actually build very, very difficult designs that are not behaving very well. So you are going to code in a way you are going to protect your tools in Macrans, but also different forms of editors. If we are going to make any or release them to the community, sometimes it is better to stay private in life, and that's how humans build better safety. Different forms of DMD and sometimes also LDC are important together with visual tokens. To understand different forms of syntax is not easy, but also to understand how you are looking for different projects. Not easy to understand different forms of tokens, but also not easy to understand debugging the web. If you are debugging the web, you'll see that all those algorithms built by working people in internet environment can actually lead to the injury. If you understand that, you are going to stop any code and you are going to start thinking about philosophy and ethics every day. Almost like the work was never important. To understand that whatever people you are working with, they work for you or you work for them, the work is simply not important if you forget the important philosophy. The philosophy without injury, the philosophy without problems, the philosophy without arguing. The modern medias all include all those difficult buttons that are actually harmful to people. And with those 6 steps in next minute, we are going to see how it's possible to change the entire generation with some more simple versions of buttons. The buttons should actually build from coder to coder from themselves. And if you are building better buttons, you are actually building better account or application. Of course, the image of the button is also important, and the license itself. And the license actually depends on your name or the design of your license. The license can be just a number or 10 or 20, 40, 40 or 50, even 100 numbers together. To understand how to block other users is also very important. If you understand to block other users, you are going to see how it's much better. Sometimes it's also smart to build a game. Sometimes it's also smart to build an elegant TV show about company. Sometimes it's also smart to build a movie about what the community actually do the entire year. Sometimes it's even better to build the account comics, how people work in your company, and not too much political forum. Sometimes it's better to forget all the women's, all the men's, and all the characters together. Sometimes this video is valued at $5 million, but do not tell anyone, because once you tell it, the value will fall for 50%, and again for 50% if you mention it further. So if you think about you are going to share something, also think about every time you share something, you also lose 50% of your value. Not easy to think about that when the media is going to explain to you with very professional tips that you should actually share things. And then you are going to share things and lose 50% of your value. Of course, in the best case, only 5%. But if you have tremendous media luck, or how the market say to that, you're going to lose 50% of entire value of your entire stock, entire company, or entire brand or design you was making, only because you did share to all the people that you have something. So it's not always the best to share things. Sometimes it's also good to understand simple D language, include DASM, also the DAST, which are very difficult formats and include different forms of the package together with the point of the code. To understand all the package, for example, the design of this silly, the design of DD Cupids, the design of different forms of routers, but also the vibes of the Nanogi and different forms of portals, it's not easy. Especially portals with simple decode are very difficult. Not easy to understand different forms of the code, true or code false. The code true appears if code is somehow functioning. If the code is not functioning, you are going to see some sort of design or luxury design false. So until you see those two, you cannot do anything. To understand different forms of the definitions, once you see different forms of square is also not easy, because you are actually see the 4 different corners in front of you, one on the upper right side, one on the left side, but still upper side. And then on the downside, it's the left side, and the downside, right side. Not easy to think about square. Of course, when you think about the way book describe the code, it's also very difficult, especially if it's not about reality code. The problem with the reality code is that on the web, net, or internet, everything is a 100% fiction. So when people are looking on media for different forms of characters or different forms of visuals or different forms of company, on the internet, your company is 100% fiction. If you think your company is real on the internet, you are probably terribly wrong. To understand different forms of definitions, it's not easy, but also different forms of converters of C++ code. Not easy to understand different forms of Java, but also very, very advanced Java forms. The design of Java it's very, very complex, but if you understand the design of Java, you can actually build a very, very difficult square. And from those levels on, no one know what you can actually build further, but not too fast. That's very important.